Can I bear rustling?
This is the Cipher, and these are lovely colours. African versus Caribbean versus British.
I'll say from African, but no, you're not.
Everyone's Africanness comes innately.
I went to Jamaica earlier this year, and I know I'm not Jamaican. They don't look at me as Jamaican.
Yeah.
I don't like people just wearing a dashiki and wearing stuff and just saying, yeah, I'm African now. That's very fake to me.
You protect people, want to claim Africa, like it's some superior, something. This being a semicircle, and you, the audience, completing the circle.
Evening, family. Evening. Welcome to Cipher Live, the home of conscious, controversial conversation. My name is Yemaya. Tonight, the Cipher will be completed by you, the audience, live at home, where we'll be delving into some of your most potent comments from episode 1. But before we dive in, we would like to take the time to offer our condolences to the Mandela family. Zinzi Mandela, the daughter of Nelson Mandela, passed away at the age of 59 recently. But we'd also like to share our grief for the family and partner of Nicole Thea and their unborn baby, who were also lost too soon. So may they all be comforted at this time. Now, with that being said, family, enter Decipher. So hi guys, how's everybody in a lockdown?
Hey, Yemaya.
Hey, it's nice to see you all.
Good to see you.
So how are you guys feeling since the first airing of the first episodes?
Man.
Yeah, excited.
It's been
A lot of good feedback.
I agree. So there are a lot of comments.
Really good.
What about you, Wiz? You there, Wiz?
Because Mike is muted.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, man, I feel like the feedback was really positive and
Really good feedback.
yeah, some good interactions. I'm excited really to delve into these comments and engage with some of the audience, get into the Cipher with us tonight. So, I mean, there are quite a few comments to pick. I mean, for me, picking the standout one for me was a bit, it was quite difficult, but I managed to narrow it down and pick one. I don't know if we're all going to end up with the same one, but the one I picked, it was, what I felt like I had a lot of responses to. It actually took me long to respond to it because I had to break it down. But yeah, what about you guys?
Yeah, the comments because they were really in depth. They added layers to the discussion, and I think it gives us an opportunity to have kind of like a think tank where we're able to bounce off new ideas from each other, and that's what we're looking for, and that's why we want to be interactive so that we can grow and the audience can grow in terms of the topics and what we talk about. So it's really exciting to see everybody give us feedback and give us really in-depth thoughts and analysis on some of the things we talked about.
Yeah, it's good that people don't agree with us. We don't want to be agreed with people. So whether you agree, whether you disagree, we want to hear from you. We're all here to learn. We're all here to share our perspectives. So bring it. You got anything to add here? Or Tan?
Yeah, no, I agree. Like with everything that you are saying, a lot of the things that were said, there were things that I didn't necessarily think about, or things that we didn't necessarily bring up on the show. But it's always food for thought, and it always gives us room to kind of go away and grow and learn. So it's all good. It's all good. Yeah.
So who wants to go first?
I could
Who wants
go
to respond to the comments first?
I could go.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the first comments was by I think it's a gentleman, or I don't know, but the name is Tarek Jabal, and they brought up a lot of I would say like quite controversial topics. So they talked about tribalism amongst African people, and talking about how certain African people are said to have sold others into slavery, and how even today we see a lot of African people throw other people under the bus, or throw each other under the bus. And those are really, really good points, and they're very important things that we should think about. Not everything is rainbows and butterflies when talking about African history. When you look into African history and everything that's happened, there's a lot of controversy, and there's a lot of mistakes that people have made, and we need to highlight those. However, I think we need to make sure we have a solution type of conversation. So even though we're criticizing, certain elements of history, we need to make sure that those criticisms are productive and they can push us forward. So that at the end of the day, when we talk about Africans in the diaspora, we're talking about building relationships, we're talking about respecting each other's history, we're talking about moving forward in a more productive way, rather than having a kind of blame game sort of conversation at the same time. So there's definitely, benefits and downfalls to that type of thinking. Thinking that, we all sold each other, and we sell each other, we put each other under the bus. So, this is what we're like. Okay, that's true. But how are we going to move forward, and how are we going to build on those criticisms?
Absolutely. I feel like discourse like this is beneficial for everybody, because, it's all well.
Sorry about that.
Good talking to people who think like you, or being in an echo chamber, but when you're able to share diverse perspectives, everybody learns something, so I feel like that's the most beneficial thing, and that's what we would hope to achieve with the Cipher, to be as interactive and engage with as many different perspectives as possible, because it's all about moving forward on a journey of learning and growth. Hi King Wiz, you're back.
Well, I'm sorry, some technical difficulties over my side, but we're good.
Hey, we reached now.
Right.
We were just talking about some of the comments. We haven't started delving into them yet. Naledi just shared her view on one that she picked out. So we just literally just started going into it now, so you haven't missed much. So welcome back.
Get that one there on the replay, don't worry.
Yeah. I've got another point to make, though, in regards to that comment as well. The Jabal comment, and it's like the other side of that is that we also need to remember that propaganda plays a big part in a lot of the things that and opinions that we believe right now. It benefits a lot of other people when we constantly talk about Africans selling each other into slavery, how Africans don't like each other, and this, that, and the other. So like I said, it's good to have criticism and to look at our downfalls and to highlight some of the ways that we aren't productive in moving forward. However, we need to also look at where that information is coming from and who it's benefiting for when we talk about each other in that type of way as well. But
especially when it comes to accountability, in terms of like reparations argument, when you distance yourself from blame and you kind of put it on as well, it's you lot's fault because you did it to yourselves, it kind of takes away the onus of the imperialists who fashioned the whole system for which it took place. So I feel like that argument is quite damaging in a sense as well, even though it may be true to a degree. It's not in to that degree, but that they imply often, in my opinion.
And it leaves us fighting amongst each other as well.
Yeah, but anything to add with regards to that comment?
Yeah, no, I was just
Exactly.
saying it leaves us fighting like amongst each other, which is a distraction, just like what Naledi was saying.
Absolutely.
So, you know.
Did you have anything else to add on that comment, Naledi?
No, yeah, that's about it. It's a really good comment. I liked it. So shout out Tariq Jamal. I hope I'm saying it properly. But yeah, that was only one of the comments I liked, but because it was the first one, I thought I'd put it out there first.
Cool. All right, so who wants to go next?
Pick up all the man who commented, yeah?
All right, I'll go next.
You got the
There's a
comment.
delay.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, the delay.
Yeah.
Thanks for the delay, family.
Shout out to Ultra Funky for the donation.
Hey, nice. Big up Ultra Funky. Oh, thanks.
Shout out
The real one.
That's amazing. That's touched my heart right there. I wasn't even expecting that, so that's beautiful. Thank you. So there was a bit of a delay, so I'm not sure if you guys heard when I asked who wants to go next to ask a question. Otherwise, I'm happy to go ahead and respond to one of the comments myself.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. All right, cool. So this was a very long comment, so I had to break it into sections. So, but this was the comment that stood out to me, and the reason it stood out to me is because it's a conversation that I've heard, a comment that I've heard in debates quite a bit, and so it stood out to me a lot. So I'll break it down. So it's by Wadadli Cat. Sorry if I'm saying it wrong. Wadadli Cat. This person commented twice, but I'm going to respond to their first comment. The first part of their comment was, they said, however, I noticed that when it involves conversations about the Caribbean, it somehow becomes all about Jamaica and jerk chicken, or if it's Africa, it's all about Nigeria and jollof rice. I thought to myself, Jamaica, I'm Jamaican. I can't really talk about Jamaica. I can't talk about St. Kitts or Grenada or Barbados because I'm not from there. So I'm just going to talk about what I know, innit? And it's part of my heritage. So, and there were no other people on the panel that were from any of the other islands to share their perspective on what it means to be, you know, Caribbean, British, or whatever. But also, like, I'm going to say this unapologetically, but Jamaica is one of the most famous Caribbean islands. Like, I'm sorry, not sorry, but like normally when you talk about the Caribbean, Jamaica comes up. You know, Jamaica comes to mind first. So in fairness, like, even if I wasn't Jamaican, I'll probably think of Jamaica first, mainly because of the cultural contribution that Jamaica has made outside of the islands, and globally they've made so many contributions. So it's not surprising that if someone from Barbados says, "Oh, I'm from the Caribbean," they'll be like, "Oh, where? Jamaica first." It's just so prevalent in society and culture.
I completely respect.
Yeah, so I'm going to move on to.
From Jamaica, that's going to be the first thing that comes to mind.
I can only talk on that. That's what I know. You know what I mean? So, and yeah, even the same thing like with Nigeria. Like, Nigerians proclaim themselves to be the African giants. Like, just like when you think of like the Caribbean, you think of Jamaica. Often when you think of like West Africa, you think Nigeria or Ghana first. Because, you know, there's predominantly a lot of Ghanaians or Nigerians in the community, and they're quite, you know, Black Jamaicans, quite bossy, and, you know, they stand out, and like I said, they self-proclaim themselves as the African giants. And the jerk chicken and jollof rice thing, I mean, those.
Can you guys hear me? Because to me, it's gone silent, you know.
And I think Yemaya is muted. Is everybody else good? Can everybody?
Yeah, we've lost.
Now. Can hear you now again.
Yeah.
Yemaya, are you there? Okay, she's muted, family.
Real thing. Are you?
We lost you for a minute.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know what happened there. Yeah, I was just saying that even like with the jollof rice and the jerk chicken thing, that those dishes are like popular dishes, well-known dishes that people outside the culture can recognize and relate to. So those are often used as examples as well. and the jollof rice thing in one plate. That is actually happening. Like, that is actually a new fusion dish that's happening. So again, that was the reason why it was used as an example. So moving on to the other part of Wadadi Lally Cat. Sorry. Was that comment in regards to like Europeans, like how they conquered the world? As he said, he or she said, also the Europeans went and conquered all kinds of places all over the world, and then declared herself Australian, American, Argentinian, etc. However, all Black people should just be relegated to just be African. And my response to that part of the comment was like, this is correct. Like, White people have gone all over the world and claimed the land as their own, and they do it proudly. And they will proudly say they're South African or from Zimbabwe and own it. But the difference is, like, they went there voluntarily and chose that for themselves. Like, Black people didn't do that, you know. Like the Europeans weren't kidnapped, taken to a foreign land where an alien language or cultural identity and nationality was forced upon them with violence. So I feel like the space in which, you know, affiliating yourselves to one space comes from is a completely different space. And like, before we start even talking about like the Australian convicts, because I know some people are going to try and come with that comment, like, the only exception here with the Australian convicts is that they were deported from England, and they were not subject to anything more than that. And they still went on to oppress their natives there and become the ruling class there in that country and enjoy all the benefits of being a conqueror. So it's not, you just can't compare it. It's a bit conflated, I would say. So Wadadali Cat went on further to make another point, which was Africa is a whole continent with 54 countries, many different cultures and beliefs, languages, etc. The Caribbean is a region consisting of over 30 different countries, some of which are still colonies, different races, different cultures, various music like Zouk, Kompas, Soca, and many more. So to say we are all the same is not true. Looking the same doesn't make us the same. So my response to that is, there's no disagreement with that part of the comment at all. Like, that's very clear, that's very obvious. But just like not all people from the Caribbean are the same, but they are connected to each other, like in various ways, like historically in some aspects, geopolitically, and in small and varying overlapping ways culturally. So the same can be said for many countries on the continent in different clusters as well. For example, the same person, Wadi Dali Cat, made the assumption that jollof rice is only from Nigeria, when in fact it's eaten in various West African countries, and like we will even have like Nigerians and Ghanaians debating about whose jollof rice is better. We have Senegal or Liberia saying that we invented jollof rice, you just copied it. So it's like there's a cultural link there that transcends the nation state boundaries that have been put in place and links them together through that dish. So yeah, you know, things that unite people are food, culture, music, shared experiences, but it's just not as simplified as I think this comment was put, in my opinion. So yeah, so that's my response to that part of the comment. So then, like I said, this comment from Wadadali Cat was very, very long. It was like that long. So I literally had to break it up. So apologies for like being on this response for so long, but we're getting there. He or she then went on to say that Europeans are white, but they don't consider themselves all the same. If they did, they would not be pushing to break up the EU, and they would not have fought wars against each other. Japan and China are both East Asians, but fought wars against each other, and to this day have issues with each other. Cool, that's all factually true. My response to that part is Europeans may not all consider themselves the same, but they all consider themselves white. Am I wrong here?
No, you're not wrong.
Right. It's like they all benefit from the system of whiteness, in my opinion. So they may be different culturally, politically, and have different nation states, but they all class themselves as white. When they tick a box, are you white? They tick the box white. And they all benefit from the same system of whiteness. Their politics may differ. They may be invested in different interests in their own nation states, which lead to political and literal conflicts. European cultures may even differ, but they have a shared history, and they are all heirs of this shared history. Just like Black people, wherever we find ourselves in the world, have inherited the legacy of this same history and the oppression that occurs under the system of whiteness. So Europeans saw themselves as the same under white Western imperialism when they joined forces for their mutual benefit at the Berlin Conference. So I just don't understand like why that's so hard to get. Do you know what I mean? And why people seem to miss that. It's like stating the obvious things like, you know, Africa's different, you know, how many different countries with different cultures. I mean, like unless I'm being dumb, like I can see that, but it doesn't change the fact that the entire continent of Africa was impacted by the entire continent of Europe, basically, and they may be different, but they all were able to join together to invade Africa and put us where we are historically in the world now, currently. So that was my response to that. And like I said, the comment is long, so does anyone want to interject because there's more?
Yeah,
so before I continue,
I was going to respond to the same comment. So
yeah,
I'll jump in quickly because it was that part of it I was interested in. Yeah, like I think the fact is we have a shared trauma. So you can't look at us and be like, oh, you know, you're from Africa. When we come to England, they're not looking at us thinking that person's from Nigeria, that person's from Jamaica, that he's from Trinidad, you're black. And so the reason why we kind of, you know, we group together in this way is it is out of reaction to that trauma, and it's our defense mechanism. Now, there are people that will argue and be like, okay, cool, you're reacting to like, you know, race as a social construct wasn't even created by us. So why are you reacting to something that was unhealthy or toxic by doing the same thing? But at the end of the day, it's like, I can see that point. I can see, okay, cool. Some people will be like, yeah, you didn't choose your race. Like if you train for a race or you train for exams or whatever, that's something you should be proud of because you have control over that. But my argument to that kind of thing is, yeah, like that makes sense by itself, but in context, we have no choice but to lift ourselves up and embrace ourselves up, which there's nothing wrong with that anyway. But in this context, we're doing it as a reaction, it's survival. Because whilst we're looking on TV and we're, you know, reading newspapers, whatever, it's all negative. So we can separate, we can be like, you know, completely accurate and be like, okay, I'm Jamaican, so my history is different, and we know that. But the reality is we have to kind of come together and be united in order to face something, because it's much bigger than just one single race or one single, you know. So like I hear, you know, the person, I hear them, it's all accurate, but it's always within context. And every time we're addressing something, it always has to be within context, you know. So yeah, that's what I have to say on that.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I agree.
When I use the term whiteness, I just want to clarify that when I use the term whiteness, so when I say the system of whiteness, I'm not talking about white people or individual white people. I'm talking about the history and legacy of slavery, imperialism, colonialism, and neocolonialism that they, and only they in the West, continue to benefit from at the expense of the rest of humanity. It's a system and structure more than a white race thing, if that makes sense. So I just wanted to clarify that, you know, for the global audience. And I will continue responding to the rest of Waddy Daddy Cats. Comments from episode 1. So he then went on to say, he or she, sorry, I'm assuming it's a he or she then went to say, I say all this to say that culture is what unites people. And I agree, and that's what Kevlar said in episode 1 as well. Like, he said, I'm going to start again. He says, I say all that to say that culture is what unites people as well as beliefs, not skin color. How can two walk together and they don't agree? If all other races disappeared today and it was only white people or black or Asian, I guarantee they would find some sort of difference amongst them and fight. Only a united mindset can unite black people, not skin color and or bloodline. And my response to that was, I agree with every single word here. And for me, I believe Professor Kehinde Andrews, shout out Professor Kehinde Andrews, I've been rereading your book again. He said it best in his book, Back to Black. The concept of blackness and whiteness is bigger than that of skin color and race. It's about politics. And I take a quote out of his book, one of the chapters from his book, where it says, "Blackness is a radical concept that ties the destiny of the diaspora together." And so for me, basically, it's like wherever you are in the world as a Black person, where you have Black skin, you face similar challenges that are symptomatic of the system of whiteness. Wherever you find yourself in the world, and it's like you can be anywhere in the world, and you face the same oppression or systematic oppression, and it's all comes from the same system of whiteness, imperialism, colonialism, neocolonialism, all of that stuff. And I say all this myself in reflection, as it is in akin to the same ways that whiteness ties the destinies of the imperial powers together as they continue to benefit from it today. So it's all about history and shared history and context and legacy. So that's that really. That was the end of that very long comment from Wada Dali Cat, and those were my responses to what was said. So does anyone else have anything to add in response to that?
Yeah. Can you hear me, yeah?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I got something to add. Obviously, what he said, or she, whoever, no respects intended, is like they're using modern history alone. They're not looking at the greater scheme of things. And it's like, just because something happened long time ago doesn't decrease the value of history. And it's like, even how they're saying there's different borders in Africa, there's different countries and stuff like that. Where did the origins of these things come from? Man are saying Caribbean's got all this mad history. How's Jamaica still not even on 100 years independence, 200 years independence? What's going on? I know companies that bread, like whole them thing that have been established longer than some of these countries that are talking about such rich history. The so-called rich history that the countries are creating are tribal history and ancient African history that these now modern countries are holding on to, trying to claim as modern. But the modern civilization, the people who are running it with this mentality of modern time, you didn't build none of that. The people who are in Egypt now, they ain't built shit like that. No, don't, sorry for my language. They ain't built nothing like on them levels in this modern time. So people are going to places like that to see ancient things, and they're claiming and making money off of the history of the ancients, and then they want to try and use our ancient unification and unified history to divide, man. You're going mad. Because that's not running. That doesn't make any sense. Because for us to get out of these things, when you was enslaved, a man's not coming up to you saying, are you from Senegal? Are you from this place? Are you from Jamaica? Put two men next to each other and they don't speak. You couldn't tell with even certain men. Some of my African friends, we stand next to each other saying, oh, I thought you're from Jamaica. I'm saying, nah, like, what? You're not from Jamaica? I would have thought you was like me, bro. He said, nah, bro, I'm from Congo. Like, mama saying, no, I'm from here. So, yeah, there are some differences, but there are also some unification factors. You can't just try to pick out the differences and then say, oh, we're not all the same, because we're talking about the things that we are the same on. We're not talking about the because that's not what is the common issue at this moment in time. Just like as you said, the system of so-called whiteness. Why would we say it's the system of whiteness? Because look at like India. Why is it that the lighter you are, higher up in power you are? How come it's not the other way around? It's not the blacker you are, the more in power you are. Because clearly the system is pushing the influence of that set of people, isn't it?
And that's global. It's not even just in India. That same narrative, that psychosis is a global thing.
Yeah, because that is a whole other struggle. That's nothing to do with Ma'afa, 400 years, and that's a whole next struggle, but yeah, it's under the same pretense. If you go to Australia, when they're talking about, how come it's all the dark people that end up getting pitched off? How come it's all of the Tasmanians and the Aboriginals, so-called Aboriginal, because they're not abnormal, they're originals, the so-called originals, them that got deaded off? How come it's it was only the last Tasmanian and these things? Why is it always so-called where the darker people are? There's genocide in Rwanda, there's genocide in this, there's blood diamond in this place. Go to Europe, look how, don't tell me that there's places in Europe where there's man starving like in Africa, but you don't see that on TV. Why is it that white is portrayed a certain way and black is portrayed a certain way? Homeless. There's homeless black man. There's gangbanging white. There's gangbanging black man. There's black drug dealers, there's white ones. But the things that are seen, even when you look at the newspapers, in the media and all these things, it's always the blackness that is attacked. So we are now unifying around the common fact that when it is a black person, despite where you're from, despite what it is, the event that you seem to be in always seem to get demonized in the media. You always get a mad thing, and then a guy who would do the same crime for the same situation, he's a white brother. He's not getting the way that they describe it, the terms that they use. It's not the same. So we have to unify around these things, because these are the common problems that we share. You can't tell us to not unify around common problems. Don't make no sense. A friend of mine, look, an enemy of my enemy could be my friend for that battle at least. And once we get to a point where we're no longer being attacked for our blackness, we can then fall out and afford to fall out for this and for that. But right now, when me and you both can afford to get stopped, house searched, all of these things because of our blackness and that, I can't afford to argue with you because of the type of blackness you have. Okay, you have a different shade of black, a different shade of green. Okay, but you're still black, bro. Segregation, you wouldn't have got spared any more than me. So so that's what I got to add to his comment. I wanted to reply to a bit of that as well, you know. He's got a different perspective.
Was there any other comments that you wanted to respond to with?
Yeah, I got one here. You know.
Yeah, go for it.
This, I think it's Wadley Cat again, you know, Wadley Cat. Listen, you're making controversy, my bro. Listen, he said also the guy, meaning me, I'm taking, downplayed Caribbean history and made it seem insignificant. Yes, Africa as a continent has a lot of history, but so does the Caribbean. All right, let's just stop there. I never downplayed the Caribbean history, but let's not take it out of context. It's like a recipe. You understand? The Caribbean history came after the African history in which we're talking about, that we're trying to unify around. The African history was interrupted to create this so-called Caribbean history, because the Caribbean has a history even before Caribbean. You've got pyramids in the Caribbean, brother. You've got Incans, Mayans. You've got civilizations that was over there. But there was a time when they're saying Mansa Musa, someone from Mali, one of the richest man to ever live. His brother, he had a brother. Man, them don't know about his brother, who sailed over the seas, they're saying. And my man set up a next civilization over there before. We're not saying that. But the Caribbean history and the African history both got interrupted by the system of whiteness and the system of oppression. Both of them got interrupted because what? Do you think that they took us from Africa to the Caribbean and what, the land was just theirs? How did they get the land in the Caribbean also to take us to? They had to interrupt that history too. We're not saying that the history that came out of that and as a result of those things isn't important. But we're saying that what's going on now, we're losing the perspective. It's like you're reading a storybook and you're reading chapter 19. But what about chapter 8 when he first met the brother? That led to the meeting way up there in chapter 18. You can't try to cut chapter 18 as if it's an isolated piece of text. History is a live thing. So you can't try to isolate our thing now and say, what Malcolm and Marcus said. And what did Marcus say? Marcus did more than all of us. Marcus has got more say than me, than any of us. He did more greatness than all of us. Yeah. So you can't talk on Marcus's level. But Marcus said that he's from the Caribbean. He was born there. My granddad, he's born in St. Anne's, Jamaica. My mum, she's born in Jamaica. Yeah. We're from Jamaica. I go there. My uncles, I phone man in yard now. They're sitting out there with the trees, them cutting 2 coconut. We're from Jamaica, but we're from Africa. Because even the man in Jamaica know that we're from Africa. You must be getting it kind of manipulated. Because Garvey done told you that's an island. But the history of that one island, and even the 30 islands that are there, does not outweigh the history of and the impact that the history has had on world history and human evolution of the mother continent. Nothing can't downplay that. And we are all entitled to hold that and to be proud of that, because we all share the DNA and the lineage from that. So by us trying to unify around that, I don't think it should be a problem. If anything, we should be happy to acknowledge how the Caribbean history came out of these things and how we managed to maintain, because even when they say, like, as you said, rice and peas comes from the African wache and certain things like that, that's preserving our culture then. Certain of the hairstyles you see on the wall, man, are seeing waves in the pyramids. Man got waves on his thing, you know. Bro, it's mad. Like when you see it, man's got waves. You see people with braids and them thing there, all that color hair and all that, all the earrings, all of that. The big hoops that they're talking about is goth and punk rock. Go to the tribes, they got that. Do you understand? So it's our history being recycled again and again and again. So how are you going to downplay the influence of that because of now passports and borders under colonial impact? Come on, man. Now, on to the next part. Sorry, Carl, I have to keep it moving so the other brothers can get doing this. But then he says, the first black independent country coming out of colonization was in the Caribbean. Coming out of what? The first black independent country coming out of colonization. So you're trying to say the Caribbean's history, this so-called rich history of the Caribbean, as a result of colonization, which could never be as big as the history before colonization, because you've been colonized, you just come back from war, you're now recovering from the damages, you're now trying to heal up, you can't carry on the direct oral traditions of certain things has been lost. All of these things, it doesn't make sense how you can claim that we're downplaying the history when we're trying to relink the history, because it's like people want to claim the history separate, but the history flows. The first and only musical instrument to be created in the last century was in the Caribbean, i.e. the steel pan from Trinidad and Tobago. The Caribbean helped Africa in the fight for liberation. Some of the sweetest music in the world came out of the Caribbean. I understand that. Those are achievements that have come out of the Caribbean. But the understanding of the people and the skill of these people as a people to even make music came out of Africa. So it's still an evolution of something. It's like a rapper or something who a man inspires you and you don't want to pay homage. It's like you're moving like the Caribbean did this thing of its own. Like, you have to pay homage to those who came before you. And when we're gone in 200-300 years, man have to pay homage to the British and how we reconnected it. But you can't take away the greatness of the past, innit? Not for modern history. Some of the sweetest music in the world came out of the Caribbean. Yes, the music has African roots, but it was also a fusion of different cultures within the region, making it unique. Some of the greatest minds in literature came from the Caribbean. Africa is great, so there is no need to dim others' shine. Further in the Caribbean, at least, in the Eastern Caribbean, we are taught about our African history. So he's saying that by what I'm saying, I'm trying to dim as if the literature of Africans, but some of the greatest scholars, as I said before, in the Caribbean are literally claiming our African heritage, and they're saying the inspiration came from our African heritage. So that's what I've got to say about his comments still.
Yeah, man, because like I agree with what you said, like the language, the music in the Caribbean has direct African roots, and anyone in the Caribbean would knows that. I don't feel anyone doesn't know that. Even when you said what you said about the hairstyles, like the fact that we still, one thing that survived is our hairstyles, the cane rows, the way we do our hairstyles, the things, the beads we add, the different patterns in our hair. That has survived. Our music has survived. The rhythms and the tones and the beats has transcended all time, space, and oppression. So, I mean, yeah, you hit so many points there, King Wiz. Like, so yeah, thank you for your contribution there. Anyone else want to add anything before we move on to Kevlar's selected comment?
That look at big comments, so many things that were said that, you know, yeah, were a little bit controversial but very thought-provoking. And I think it's good when people, you know, I don't know what they were doing, but sometimes it's good to have a devil's advocate that certain things, because it does highlight, you know, like I mentioned before, a lot of the propaganda that's out there. There are people who benefit from us having a constant back and forth about whose history is better and whose music is this and that and the other. But we're going to be here all day, and it has to be a progressive conversation. And we've been having these types of, you know, debates for a very long time, where we're constantly comparing the islands to the continent, or the Americas to the continent, and that's okay. Like, everybody's opinion and everybody's you know, defenses is understandable. It makes sense. But what's the next step in terms of moving forward? We have to unite. Otherwise, why are we even here?
Yeah, and to go back to what King Wiz took out of Wadali Dali Cat's comment in regards to the first independent Caribbean nation, I think he might have been referring to Haiti. And maybe not a lot of people know this, but that the majority of Black people on the Haitian island at the time were Africans directly from Africa. Like, so you got other Caribbean islands where they were born and bred on a plantation and reproduced, and when you were slavery, Haitians, they literally were still bringing Africans fresh from Africa to Haiti, and those were the Africans that started the revolution. So, I mean, that in itself just kind of reinforces how the link is still strong, and even in itself, the culture, history, and the spirit was out of Africa.
And there's a comment, Yemaya, I'm looking for it now, and one of the viewers talked about how their uncle had told them, that I'm looking for it now, I lost it. If anybody can find it, I don't want to misquote, but someone said that their uncle told them this weekend that their great grandmother came from Africa. So I'm assuming that the person's actually Caribbean. And comments like that it's important for us to understand. Yeah, my uncle told me on the weekend in Jamaica as a child, his great grandmother told him that her grandmother came from Africa. So it's not that long ago when we talk about, especially global history, or it's not that long ago. And I think, we have a lot of these narratives where people try and push this conversation to the side and be like, yeah, that was 500 years ago, 400 years ago. But that's not a very long time. And like King was said, when we talk about global history or ancient African history, you cannot, when we talk about slavery, as much as we can never downplay it. However, it's not that long ago, and you cannot compare. Slavery is like 5 minutes when you talk about world history, because, when you go on the documentaries and stuff like that, they'll tell you they found a bone that's 6,000, 10,000 years old. So 10,000 versus 500, that's let's think about it. Let's really sit down and think about it.
And it kind of plays back into like this one way to be Black thing. Like even on like the island of Jamaica, there's so many, like there are people, there are the Maroons, there are the Rastas, and there are like the general population of Jamaicans. And they just like they all very different culturally and very similar culturally. And for example, the Maroons themselves still consider themselves and call themselves African and still speak African languages. They still have the Cromanti tongue. And it's still alive and well. So the history is not that old. It's still alive and kicking, literally. So yeah, we're gonna move on to Kevlar. Last but not least, my brother. Which comment did you pick?
Peace. First off, I like all the comments you guys chose, and I like your responses. Shout out to everyone in the comments. And shout out for the donations as well. So
yeah, Nanny of the Maroons, in fact, donated to us just now. So big up, sis, sister queen.
Yeah, we very much appreciate that. There we go. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
The comment that I picked is sort of continues on from this discussion. So I picked a comment by a guy called Bobby E. Wright. So shout out to him, and he refers to Dr. John Henrik Clarke in his comment, and what he kind of paraphrases is quote, "Stop focusing on where the slave ship dropped us off and focus on where it stole us from." So I'll read that again. He said, "Stop focusing on where the slave ship dropped us off and start focusing on where it stole us from." Now, I respect the good brother for his comment and his views, but me personally, I very much question this idea and this narrative that we were stolen. And I think we need to sort of get out of that kind of mindset that we're a dismembered people, we're a stolen people. I think we need to switch the narrative. Now, I'm not saying that to disregard slavery, which did happen. But I just look at this in the wider sense of history, And you know, if you just look at archaeology and you look at symbology, you will see that we've been on this planet for a long time, you know. And just look at the timelines here. So slavery happened in what, the 1600s. Well, don't we also know that the Moors were out in Spain and Italy civilizing the Europeans there, like in the 1400s? So if they were doing that since back then you know, their level of their intellect, their science was, you know, way much more advanced. So we need to stop looking at just slavery, because then we box us into a trap, I'd say, you know. And also, if we've been on this planet for millions of years, then isn't it likely that our ancestors were curious? You know, the same ancestors who were mapping out the stars, they were curious to go explore different lands, different territories. You know, they were setting sail. So they were breeding all across the planet. So then it's a bigger question of, are we African or are we indigenous? Now, if it's an application, of course, I'm going to say, yeah, I'm African. I'll tick that box. But I consider myself to be indigenous to this planet, to this universe, like God status. Like, I want to get out of that conversation, because we need to progress. We need to take this forward. Like, I respect all the brothers who've put in the hours of scholarship into talking about slavery, and that was important. But when are we gonna reclaim, you know? So that's what I'm all about. So going back to the comment, what the guy says, what Bobby E. Wright says, in terms of focusing on where they stole us from, I don't consider myself stolen. I'm exactly where I need to be right now. You know, when I think about, I'm a very spiritual person, right? So when I think about the cosmic significance of why I was incarnated in the West, when I could have incarnated in Africa, I think about, why did I incarnate in the West? You know, at a time in the epicenter of this technological change and this technological development. We're in the West right now. I'm speaking to a computer, right? In Africa, maybe I wouldn't even have that privilege to get this message out to the world, but I incarnated in the West, and I'm having this conversation here now through a laptop screen, and we're connecting this all over the world. So I'm looking at the cosmic significance. I'm exactly where I need to be right now. I wasn't stolen from anywhere. I don't have that mindset. You know, and so, yeah, so I'm very much progressive thinking. I'm looking forward. I'm trying to see what new hieroglyphics can we erect. You know, we always refer back to the past, and it's important to, but we're here now. What are we moving forward? Not what new discussions are we having? And that's not to disregard slavery, and there's still a large body of people who are disenfranchised by it. You know, and I think, you know, we need to unify, as King Wiz said, and stop trying to segregate ourselves into these little pockets, or, you know, just getting caught up in the semantics of saying I'm Jamaican or I'm African. But let's look at the bigger picture of this, of what we represent, of what melanated people from all across, you know, the four corners represent. You know, and if
these are some powerful things.
And if we can get connected on that standpoint, then we can start looking beyond the narrative they told us. You know, because we're just going off of the history books. You don't think is they only teach us slavery? Think about that. I never heard about the Moors until I got on YouTube and started researching that.
Trust me.
I never heard about, you know, all these other sciences. You know, the West call it occult sciences, but it's our science. It's our own, you know what I'm saying, spiritual science. And they try to mystify it. But we haven't even got to that discussion, because we're still caught on the slavery thing.
Facts. You know what stood out to me the most, and I agree with you, because we spend so much time talking about slavery, because that's what we're taught as well, that we neglect to highlight that before slavery, that happened, also known as slavery, that we were traveling, we were going places, we were exploring the globe, and before the continental drift, we didn't even need to get on ships to get there. We could walk there. So.
Sorry.
Go on, continue.
No, I was saying, I saw like this post on Instagram, and it was showing all the melanated people in Indonesia, in China. Like, they don't show us these images, so we think that we only that we're only constricted to Africa, or, you know, the islands. But when you look at it, like, yo, we were everywhere.
But these same people in Indonesia and even in India, the black people in India know that they came from Africa. They will say themselves, we came from Africa. That means that we literally went traveling and populated the whole globe. Literally, and this was before Ma'afa. So, but we are, the pain of the Ma'afa is still so strong because it hasn't been repaired. There's been no reparations, there's been no resolution, it hasn't been healed. So and it's such a recent time in history, and the pain is still, the impact is still so significant that I suppose we are dwelling on it a lot. And also, I feel that it's designed that way, hence why that's all we're taught about our history in the mainstream, as opposed to what we can find out independently. But yeah, I agree with my brother, like, there was history before slavery, and that's the history I want to be learning, to be honest with you. The history before slavery, and not just that, as you said, being progressive in what we are developing now, as we are placed in this time space continuum right now. Exactly. What are we developing right now? What history? This is going to be history one day. We're going to be history one day. What history are we making at the present? So, yeah, man, I'm fully with you on that, my brother.
Can I say something?
Yeah, go on.
That's there's two where you're coming from. Some men are gonna get left at this point. Like certain men are gonna take it on a face value thing and say, "What do you mean he's trying to disregard slavery and that?" But they're not gonna get it on a deeper thing, because it's like, as we were saying, this is chapter 18 now. You can't keep worrying about the plot of chapter 8 now, trying to progress on chapter 18. Obviously, it has a place, innit? Everything has its place. It's like every tool, innit? But you have to know how to use the tool. You can't have the hammer when you need a screwdriver and try hammer the screw in, because it's gonna mash up the thing. Do you understand? Same thing with us. It's like, we've got hung up on this slavery thing now. We all learned by it in school, as you said. But when you understand it, it's one thing to hear about something and to listen to something, be taught something. It's another thing to understand it and the implications that this thing has. So when you overstand it, in fact, when you overstand something and you can see the implications it has, we have to look now. We can't expect the same people who did the colonizing to teach man about the greatness of who we are before, because that makes them look worse. Because people always say this thing, as you said, we were stolen, we was enslaved. No, we were not slaves. As you said, we was not slaves. We've never been slaves. We was architects, scientists, medicine, all sorts of people, yeah? All sorts of high intellect, cultural things. And we were taken and we was made and molded into something else. These words like slaves, and they just blanket things, because it doesn't really give you an understanding of what we are actually talking about. We're talking about human beings, indigenous people to a land that they were from.
Oh no.
What?
King Wiz is gone?
What? They try sabotage.
Hey.
Babylon ain't having a bar.
They're trying to shut you down, man.
They don't want you to win, King. They don't want you to win. What's going on?
I'll stop.
Yeah,
but can you hear me?
Yeah, the camera just cut off though. We can hear you though.
Big man behind the scenes on a Matrix thing, he knows what I'm talking about. Sort out something for me, you know, find the Smiths, them, you know, the locked off. But listen, anyway, as I was saying, because I was on a good point, yeah, obviously, they're not going to teach us certain things, innit? We have to now take it upon ourselves to stop using the little petty infrastructure that has been created. China, stop using the infrastructure that has been created for us as a result of something, yeah, to solve our issues. Can you hear me, yeah?
Yeah.
Our issues. There's people like Umar and that, they're doing schools and stuff like that. We don't have to do it on a big scale. You see, in those times that we're talking about, we used to learn to make do. Look at Martin, look, so-called history now, modern history, Martin Luther King and them. We don't even use that information to our advantage, you know, because they did things like boycotts. They did things like grouping up together, not taking a bus. People would drop their neighbor. Nowadays, how much people would even drop their friend or their cousin's children to school and sacrifice something for the progression of that child? Nevertheless, what? Go do a do a mad thing for the people. Man won't even do a mad thing for their family. People, you see, even the corona situation, because we're going to talk about this after. So I got some points for that, but it's like, you have to nowadays even choose between homeschooling your children or working from home 9 to 5. What are you going to do? Are you going to put the food and the bills, because of the system that is oppressing you, to stress you out first? Or are you going to put the freedom and the creativity and understanding of your child first? Now, it's a hard decision either way, but that's the position we're in. Until we find progressive ways to remedy these things instead of worrying about stuff. Our ancestors found ways to get out of slavery. They was getting whipped, yeah? They was getting burned. They was getting branded. They found it, man. Harriet found their way to free up them, man. We got our modern day problems that we're talking about and analysing the next battle that's happened back then. We're glamorizing. It's good to hear them battle stories for morale and certain things, but exactly, what's the issues today, as Kevlar's saying? We're born in this position, incarnation, for a reason. Why are we here? What are we here to do? Let's get on job. And how can we do that to the best of our ability so that we can actually achieve something worth talking about? So something worth being history, instead of us talking about a greatness that's gone. Yeah, Harriet Tubman and them, they're looking at us saying, okay, so what are you going to do now? It's that the relay. They gave us the baton.
And not just that, they lived through us. That's the thing. They lived through us.
Exactly.
So what are we doing with that energy?
With that energy, with that knowledge now, that ancestral DNA knowledge. What are we doing with it? We're looking backwards and we're reminiscing. We're hearing nostalgia, looking back, thinking, if only I was there, I would have lived.
Right? Here's the thing, bro. Like, the ancestors are waiting on us to make the next move.
Because if you said,
they're waiting on us to make the next move.
Exactly.
And we're here, you know, stealing our own power and bigging up this white supremacy thing, which is a delusion. It don't exist. Exactly. Like, it doesn't. White supremacy, like, it does not exist as a real thing. It does not exist. We make it real with the energy that we feed it.
It's true.
Why don't we start feeding black supremacy?
It's true. Command them are on that. I'm shook now. When you get to them territory now, man start getting scared now, you know. Man start thinking that we're gonna do what they're gonna start. Definitely, just because, like, what, you're a footballer and I'm a footballer. Just because you're a left winger and I'm a left winger, don't mean I have to play the way you play. Just because you're a team and you've got 11 men, I don't have the same formation as you. But because in your psyche and your consciousness, this is what supremacy is: oppression. Our supremacy wasn't oppression. Our supremacy was, we had people in awe. You know, when you go to a place, it's so amazing that you're looking at it like, wow, just like, wow, the mind that made this. That's real power. I don't need to slap you and beat you. And when you come there, you're going to want to sit down and listen to what man's got to say, because you're looking at the results of the way these men are thinking. As you said, God's status. Man are not thinking of us stolen and slaves and these things. You cannot build certain things. You cannot create these things and free yourself in that state of mind, that frequency of thought. That frequency of thought is not going to get you out of this situation or help you to reach the highest level of your consciousness to do what your spiritual journey is meant to do. It's one thing to be on earth, but it's the next thing to talk about spirituality. Because what I know, I have a sister. I've been on the earth longer than she is. There was a time she wasn't here, and now she's here, and she's a being. So where did she come from? Don't tell me she just come out of thin air, bruv. You stupid. I don't believe that foolishness. Something is there, and it's a greater cause, as you said. So
I hear you, my brother. You guys, you've contributed spectacularly to this conversation. Big up the audience in the comment section, all the viewers joining the Cipher. We're gonna go to a short break, so we will see you on the other side, where we'll be talking about managing lockdown and isolation in this COVID-19 era. So join us shortly after the break into the Cipher.
GotPushTV.com is now opening for you to advertise, calling all businesses, promoters, event organizers, artists, service providers, content creators, and brands of every kind. If you are looking to share your business or services with a growing and diverse audience, GotKush TV is the space for you. Advertising space is available all over the website. You can advertise here, 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 and you can even advertise here. All spaces are going at very reasonable rates, and we even have a design and production service, especially for those who will need an advert designed or produced for you. For inquiries, don't hesitate to contact us. info@gotkushtv.com. Advertising on gotkushtv.com. We look forward to hearing from you. Wordsmith, the #1 platform in the UK where black music meets bars, meets message. Don't watch the industry, we are the mainstream. Wordsmith, exclusively on Got Kush TV.
Greetings, welcome from Ghana, Accra. I am Stella B. I am hosting for Got Kush TV's Voyage to Motherland.
This is Nat Nai, Got Kush TV, Voyage to Motherland.
Your business.
Right.
Welcome back to the Cipher. My name is Yemaya. You're joined with us with Naledi, Tanesha, King Wiz, and Kevlar. And we have been responding to your comments from episode 1 of the Cipher. And we are now going to move on to our next topic, which is how to manage lockdown and isolation. So, I mean, there's a lot of research and stats going around, but I feel like we should, start off by sharing our own experiences first. And how have you guys been finding this? How many month-long holiday? Basically. Nobody?
Yeah. Okay. For me, it's been a lot. It's been a lot for me because I've got my daughter and she's in year 7. So the workload has just been crazy. It's made me kind of have to, I've realized a lot, I think, because before I was kind of thinking about homeschool and if I could do it. And now that I've kind of got into the experience, I'm like, wow, there's a lot that I'd have to put in place for this to be able to work. And like, I think in the beginning, I kind of was getting like really anxious and stuff because I was like, oh, I can't keep up with the work. And then I saw something that Erica Badu posted because she homeschools all her children. And she spoke about it kind of like just remembering to work on our timing and not to let the system kind of pressure you. And I just, this, like, it just, sometimes you just need that kind of reminder. So I was like, this. And since then I've kind of slowed down and I've had the chance to like introduce like 2 things that I wanted to do with my daughter. Like, we've started doing African studies together. We started doing like astrology together, which are things that for a long time I was like, oh, I want to start this, next month, but I've never been able to find the time to do it because I'm always running around. Whereas now, obviously, being forced to kind of be still, I found myself finding time to do a lot of the stuff that I've been putting off for a long time. So it's like, I think I can take, it's been different experiences. Part of it's been tough, part of it's been hard, but then at the same time, I've been able to take a lot of good from it. I've been able to kind of just be still and do a lot of reflection. And, I'm reading more and going to the park more, going like on walks and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a balance. And I think for me, like, I just see it as everything happens for a reason. So I try to make the most of every experience that I'm in and just kind of just be at peace with it, accept how I feel and just, just move however I need to move. And yeah, so I'm here, still going.
Yeah, man, that sounds really positive. I mean, like, for me, I feel like I've found myself again in this lockdown thing because the distractions are just not there. Like the obligations of life, the rat race, have just been removed, and I found myself really learning to appreciate the simple things in life. Make the most of what I have and the simplicity in life, and rediscover things that I wanted to rediscover for a long time, but just didn't have the mental, emotional space to do so all the time because it was filled with so much surviving in society, rat race. thing. So I've started learning 2 languages. I've started reading. When I finished uni,
what language?
French and Swahili.
Oh, okay. That's
yeah.
amazing.
So like, when I left uni, I could not read for pleasure. I left uni years ago. When was this? 2012, 11, 12? I couldn't read for pleasure until, with the exception of 1 or 2 really good books that gripped me, like Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's book, Half of Violet's Son. With the exception of the 1 or 2 books, I couldn't read for pleasure back to back until I found myself in a lockdown. So now I'm reading back to back again in book clubs. I'm learning languages. I started learning languages before, but I just couldn't commit to it. I was like, well, there's no routine. So now I've got to make my own routine. So I'm just reading languages, this, that, and the other. I've started exercising again. I used to work out 3 times a week, and then life got in the way, and I hadn't moved properly for so long. And now I'm doing my running regularly, working out. Just making sure that I'm really being more intentional about what I cook and putting in my meals and appreciating my home. Like, I actually like my house. I like being here. And even the fact that I've lived in this area in South Norwood for a few years now, and I never really appreciated how many nice parks there are around here. This place is kind of hood, but it's got some really good green spaces, and I used to visit this one park often. I never knew it was a nature reserve until lockdown. 500 acres or something like that. Bare acres. I only actually probably been in a mile around it until lockdown, when I realized it was massive and I started to explore it. So I had a lot of benefits out of it. But on the flip side as well, there has been a lot of anxiety about like finances, about what's going to happen afterwards when things get back to normal, and like some of the things that Tanesha shared. So it's just like, it's a bit of a balance, but I feel like the positive for me and where I was at in my personal life has outweighed the negatives. And it's just taught me to be content with things. I'm just content right now, even with the stresses that are there. So yeah, man, on to the next. Who's next?
Yeah, I'll go next. Sorry. Oh, sorry, Kev. Apologies. I'm gonna take it anyway while I'm here. Yeah. I completely agree with you. I think it's been a big time of self-reflection for me, looking at where I am and how far I've come. And it's a great opportunity because, for a lot of people now there is extra time to kind of look into yourself and spend a bit more time with yourself, because the distractions of the everyday is gone. So I've been kind of in that mode of looking at myself and what am I doing and what are the reasons behind what I'm doing, which I think is another level of looking into yourself, which can be a bit scary. And that, the isolation can also be scary. I was kind of on my own most of the lockdown, and a lot of my conversations were just on the phone. Whether it was, video call or, telephone call. And when I started kind of going to a shop and seeing a neighbor, I got so excited because it was like, wow, this is a physical person that I can speak to, and I know you, and we can interact. And it really taught me the value of interaction, and communication, because it's more than just words, it's feelings, it's expression, it's energy, it's vibration. So it was difficult in the sense of being isolated, but I've definitely learned so much, and like you said, are able to appreciate, the little things in life, sharing a cup of tea with someone, as things started easing off, and, interacting with the neighbors and, speaking to people a bit more, like definitely there was a realization that the little things matter and we need to be so much more grateful for what we have. That's it for me.
I hear you, sis, man, for real. There's little things and appreciating the human contact. That there's even research that I've said that people are spending more time with their families and are bonding more. So it's re-collaborated our human interactions, I feel, in many ways. What about you, King Wiz or Kevlar?
You wanna go first, my boy? Go for it. Nah, man, she interrupted, but you had to let the queen go. So nice, yours.
Yeah, of course. I just want to say, it's really beautiful what you guys are doing. I like what you said, Tanesha, about teaching your daughter astrology and stuff like that. I think that's super awesome. Connecting with children, because I think they need it the most right now. And yeah, in my personal experience dealing with this lockdown, for me, I wouldn't say not much has changed in I guess in my habits. I've always been a very introspective person, always in yard basically. So for me, it's more about where do I go next, and challenging myself to do things differently. Because obviously I've had that time for self-reflection now. I've always viewed every single day as a ritual. You do everything ritualistically, whether you wake up at a particular time, and you can always find new ways and new rituals to discover deeper levels of self. So, if your usual ritual is waking up sometimes at 9 a.m., try change up the ritual and wake up at 6 a.m. and see what different level of yourself you can tap into. So I've just been trying to be creative, because one thing that a lockdown does is it just saps away at that creativity. You get into the routine of things so much. So I've just been trying to challenge myself to grow, and just trying to find that balance between pushing myself to do more and then taking the time to rest. Because even though the connotations of lockdown is very scary for some, I always look at this as something that happened for a reason. I think it was sent down cosmically. I think something's happening up there and it's trickling down here. And I know things are working out in our favor. So I'm just trying to do my work down here so it translates to up there, and just trying to connect. It's funny how Yemaya says that she's learning French. That's a mad synchronicity, just because today I picked up my old French textbook and I was just going through it. Like, let me just brush up on my French. So shout out to you. And yeah, as for the books I'm reading, because one guy shouted out my bookshelf, so shout out to you, Nate the lyricist. I'm reading A Glastonbury Romance at the moment, written in the 1930s, and I'm reading Philip K. Dick's book. What's it called? Forgot what it's called. Valis, which deals with like Gnosticism. So if you're into them kind of things there, and virtual reality, and the idea of this whole thing being a simulation. Because we are speaking through I think the days have become very competitive, and one day kind of runs into the next, and it does very much seem like a simulated reality. Even the fact that I'm speaking to people through I'm saying a laptop, that's weird for me, man. Like that was the biggest shock for me, is the fact that human interaction is kind of cut off. If there's one thing that's been hard on me, I guess it is that part. It's just the speaking through the phone. That's very hard for me. And I don't know what's going to happen in the future in regards to that. But I very much need some human connection, man. Whether it's just going to the park with a friend and playing ball, or just need something, man. Because, at the end of the day, we're humans and we're social creatures, and we need that. So I'm very much looking forward to things opening back up again, and I hope they do soon. But yeah, that's me during lockdown.
Beautiful, beautiful. King Wiz, on to you.
King Wiz. King.
Hey.
Obviously, I don't know, in the artists as well. So I got a couple different perspectives in it, because one, I'm a musician. I make my own clothing. This is the movement of Forgotten Kings. Big up the people. Them shout antisocial and that. Now, what I was doing, like, firstly, it impacted music, but it actually was more beneficial than I thought it would be, because it's like when the music normally is on, everyone's busy, everyone's doing stuff, whereas everyone's forced to be home. So certain big artists and certain people like that, they're doing Instagram live, they're doing interaction. You said everyone's craving that interaction, and the only way that we can really interact now has been forced like this. So it forces a lot of people into certain places. So I get to showcase my talent in a lot of these talent shows, and we're kind of entertaining the people, because a lot of Netflix shows are getting done, a lot of stuff like your normal means of pleasure. It's like if you do something every day, it kind of loses it. Like your favorite food, if you eat every day, it kind of loses it. So I kind of benefited from that. Other than that, I was locked down with the missus, so we was kind of together. It wasn't so much like I'm by myself and I don't have anyone. But whereas we was out of like London and stuff like that, it's not the same, because I can't really check up on like family, my little brothers and sisters and stuff, my mom. Like there's a lot of pressures that come with lockdown, and that also kind of falls over to me, because a lot of people don't talk about it, but worry is also a thing. Stress is a thing. It's like, I'm wondering, I'm good, yeah, I'm good myself, but is mom good? Like, is dad good? Like, and dad good? And man's hearing a lot of inconsistent things regarding this lockdown. Even at the beginning, conspiracy, 5G, like there was bare different things, like, because this is like, it was mad, innit? So it was fun at first, I can't lie. The first like 2-3 weeks, yeah, it was kind of like raw. But me, I'm the type of person, I kind of think about it. I watch shows like them Doomsday Preppers and them kind of things, like, man, I watch them kind of thing, you know? So it's like, I'm kind of, big up Shakara, he said, showing off on the big up Sam, but the single folks then, big up yourselves. It's all love, you know?
Big up Shakara, I was one of those folks. Yeah, it's me, by myself.
No, but it's like, yeah, where was I? I don't even know. The chain of thought went, but either way, I was still saying it's like, it was kind of different, innit? Whereas I got the misses, like, and the worry, stuff like that. But other than that, it was good, man. The lockdown, it's been interesting to see, because I'm not someone who really thinks along the, it's like, what do you mean? Even if you're fine, you're suddenly surrounded by people. Big up Nate the lyricist on the comments. It's true, because even sometimes you're good yourself, it's true, and you might not be worrying, and then other people are worrying about things, and that even like, you see the shops, at first it was mad, I forgot that's a big point, bro, everybody bought the toilet paper up, everybody and I'm doing that, you're not me, I went and bought up enough paracetamol and them things there. Packs of cigarettes, car man, them can trade. I bought
bare potatoes. I don't even know why I bought bare potato.
In food, not in food. Pasta and stuff was hard to get. It was coming like gold. Pasta, spaghetti, it's a bit mad. But we had kind of had stock before, so we was alright. But it shows you, innit, that look, when people talk about unity and all of these things, yeah, I kind of love to see these things, because it's one thing. I was on the roads back in the day when I was younger, and it's one thing to have a chat with someone here when it's all calm. Everything's all good, you're chatting. Man says, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. See, when things really kick off and things are now, your heart's beating, certain things are risking. Now you're going to see what people are about. Just look around us. Where was the community? Everyone's talking about unity, this, and we need to unify, because things like this are happening, and we should have things in place to help our elder. Like, we shouldn't have to be worrying, is my parents all right? We should know there's people that can represent us on the level and certain things, innit? So it was good to see a situation of panic and stuff like that for our people, because we can kind of use it to reflect and assess, did we handle this well? Did we have our streams of like news and certain things, or did we just, like, was everyone just panicking? Was everyone just following, could you get food? So next time, would you need to put yourself in a position where, you know?
You know what's mad? Because I actually forgot how much humanity itself decayed at the start of lockdown. Actually, it feels like so long ago now. When I went into Aldi, it was like flipping supermarket sweep. We're jamming their trolleys into each other, arguing, fights breaking out, fighting over food. I actually forgot. It was a complete madness. It was like the Walking Dead gone mad situations, and people being very selfish and buying up things in excess. It was actually crazy. And I think the toilet paper thing was a strange phenomenon. The toilet paper thing was mad. I don't understand that, and I feel like a psychological study needs to be done on that, because mad. we've lost you, King Wiz. And literally, we've kind of moved on from the carnage of survival, make sure you get your food, to everyone kind of living in this utopia of we're all spending more time together, we're all bettering ourselves, and it's like, yeah, maybe, you know, it's causing evolution. It was mad, and now it's calm, and now we're all bettering ourselves. Yeah.
But do you know what, though, like, especially with like the people that want to scream like all lives matter and all this protest. No disrespect to anyone, I'm not taking that away from it. But look at the hypocrisy. Just a minute ago, man couldn't get a spaghetti because you was taking it. But now you're gonna, you know, my behalf, brother. Brother, you didn't even want me to get to you food a couple of weeks ago. Now, come on, man. Actions speak louder than words, innit? Man have to really deep it, innit?
And the moments when you did see the small pockets of compassion, it really stood out. Because even with myself, there was a lady who I think when I did my panic buy, I picked up maybe 3 packs of eggs or 4 packs of eggs, and there was a lady next to me who didn't have eggs, and I gave her one of mine. And in that moment in time, when I gave her one of my packs of eggs, I actually realized, wow, like, there are people out there that are not getting food because people are buying up these things. This woman bought a whole crate of what was she? It was a crate of some things. And I was just like, you're going to be living off that for 100 years, and the woman's going to come to shopping later and not have that to buy it and to feed herself. So there were small pockets of compassion, but the majority of the human behavior during that time was very scary. Okay. Yeah, big up nurses. It was pandemonium. It really was. It really was.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to add is in times like this, it is almost warlike. When you think about the conditions that we're living in, you think about all the propaganda that's going around, it does very much seem like a war to me. But instead of it being fought with guns, it's a very psychological war, you know, because it messes with your energies and your emotions. And, you know, one thing that I'm trying to focus more now in this pandemic, if you want to call it that, is just being more aware of my energy, my thoughts, and kind of just training myself physically and mentally also. Whenever I see my anxiety start to mount up, I'm trying consciously to find ways to bring it down, whether it's through breath work. And I think it's very important now that we begin to train on those levels. Train, you know, being able to not eat, like, you know, for a day. Are you able to fast? Are you able to go through long periods without eating and not feeding the body? Because there might be some testing times. My mom said that she had a kind of prophetic kind of dream. And I've had a dream, even before this pandemic happened. I don't even share this too often, but I had a dream that this was going to happen a year before it happened, which is crazy, right? But I did have a dream that I would have to leave uni because of some sort of pandemic, and that ended up happening. And my mom also had a dream that we might even go into a certain period where things do get worse and all we have at home is rice to eat. Now, my question is, if that happens, is your faith going to start to quiver and shake? Or are you going to be able to be spiritually grounded enough to say, you know, my mind is stronger than my body, so I can sustain myself, or spirit will sustain me? You know, we might come across some real physical challenges in the future. And I don't want people to just be in this bubble of, you know, things are going good. Like, of course, don't panic. And I'm not trying to give a panic message out there, but I am trying to say, you know, let's be real about the times we're living in. There's a big shift that's happening in consciousness. People are waking up. You know, a lot of stuff about, you know, child trafficking is coming to the surface, and it's exposing a lot of things that were hidden before, you know. So, of course, they're going to start feeding you with things to get you off of that path of awakening yourself, you know. So I recommend that everyone trains himself. If you can get like a little 10 minutes in of working out, do that. If you can get a little 5 minutes, 10 minutes in of meditation, do that. Taking walks. Yeah, I don't know if that's all relevant, but that's just how I feel. It's important that we train ourselves and be real with ourselves. During this lockdown, I had to deal with a lot of dark parts about myself You know, I'm not this all love and light being who just espouses that, you know, that it's all about loving. You have to embrace there's a dark side of you, you know, and you have to deal with that. It's tough, but this is the spiritual work that we have to do in these periods of time to liberate ourselves from, you know, these chains that have held us down for so long. You know, we are evolving. They're not going to tell you this, but we are, in the mind, and you know, the mind comes before the physical, right? The universe is mental. We are going into a new space and time. Babylon is burning down. The old ways are collapsing. So we need to have, we need to have a certain level of mental, what's the word I'm looking for? Not just resilience, but acuity, mental sharpness. We need to be thinking about the future now and what we can build, you know. So yeah, so just take it. Yeah, that's what I have to say, really. That's what I have to say.
I like the way you think, Kevlar. I really do. I feel like we align in a lot of ways, because like it has been, you know, the inner work that I've been doing, and the being in nature, the exercising, the self-imposed routine, not the external rat race routine, but something that was development of myself, has really kept me in a mentally good space, and where I felt like where I was not evolving because I didn't have time to focus on my evolving. I'm not able to. So I definitely agree with what you're saying. There's definitely a shift going on, not only just within myself, but within society, within humanity. Even the fact that since lockdown, you know, just a short amount of time, we have been relatively stagnant as a society, that the pollution levels has dropped so much that nature has made such a comeback, to the point where my friend was saying he saw a badger in his garden. I'm seeing wildlife I've never seen before. I'm seeing these kind of birds that I ain't never seen before. I always get like excited about this, and people think I'm crazy, but I saw a fox and her cubs playing on the grass. And normally they just see the mangy fox at night time. When you see a whole family of foxes playing freely outside in the open, it's not something you see every day, because they're normally so cautious of human beings, and it's just this kind of rest has allowed not only ourselves as human beings to recuperate and regenerate, but also nature. And it's just been, I think it's been quite beautiful, apart from the financial difficulties that many people face, and also how, you know, it's impacted a lot of people's mental health in this time, being isolated and being under so much stress and not having that job security or uncertainty about the future has had an impact on mental health as well. So we can't neglect the fact that, you know, it hasn't been all rosy and all positive for everybody. There are pockets of society where people have lost their jobs. I don't know what the future holds for them, and have had a huge impact on their mental health. So, yeah.
I think one of the things for lockdown for me, especially as it relates to us kind of as a people, is 100% unity, more unity and more support. Support Black businesses. If there was any other time to do that, like, it would be now, to work together and support each other. I was very privileged during the lockdown. You know, unfortunately, a lot of people did have obviously lost their jobs, and I was very lucky to work with my sister on her business that she's been running for like 4 years. So it's a vegan beauty business. We make beauty products, and it was such an amazing time to learn that actually I'm capable and it's possible for me to work with Black people and profit and make money, or, you know, work with people and make products that I'm proud of, as opposed to just being in the office because I have to, because I'm waiting for a paycheck. So, you know, there's many Black businesses within the Cipher family. Kevlar, you can do your little advertisement, has an amazing jewelry line, which is so beautiful. King Wiz and your music, absolutely dope. So it's now the time to come together and support each other and help each other grow in terms of Black people, because there's a saying that says, when the world has a flu, Black people have cancer. You know what I mean? So we're going through a pandemic globally, but understand that when it comes to our people, the level of suffering is on another level. Simply because we're here and we're black. So this is definitely a time to support one another. Maybe a time for young people like myself to take an opportunity to look into things that you can do, things that you want to make grow, ideas that you have that you want to make, you want to manifest and meet people and work with people, whether online. Nowadays, we're working things out in a different way, but it's a massive opportunity for all of us to come together and support each other more. I just want to give a quick shout out because I've got family in the chat. So, Nate the lyricist, my brother, my king. Love seeing you. Love your comments. Give thanks. So good to see you. Big up to everybody commenting. I'm just looking for my sister, IBJL. She was on here. Give thanks to you guys. Thank you for the comments, guys. It's amazing.
And on the back of the supporting black businesses thing, I hope everybody on here is liking and subscribing to Got Kush TV on all the socials and telling your friends to tell their friends to tell their friends to like and to subscribe to Got Kush TV on all the socials.
Yeah.
So, see, does anyone have anything else to add with regards to their experience of lockdown? Any tips or any more strategies on how to manage it best? Or shall we wrap it up for the night, people?
I'm enjoying this conversation so much. I don't want to wrap it up, but I understand that it's been going for an hour and 30 minutes. So I'm thankful for all the people who stayed this long. Salute to you. You're getting the true knowledge from us. And we're circulating that energy. I'm gonna say this: we're moving into a time, right, where money, like physical money, might soon not be like an actual thing. We're moving into that digital age. I'm not so educated on that, but I think that is something that we do need to get educated on. If there is anyone who knows anyone who's running classes, talking about digital currency, I think that's something that we might want to get look into, because at the end of the day, what is currency, right? It's what's relevant. It's what's being transferred, and we circulate that online. So right now, we're providing a type of currency to the audience who are watching. But how do we make sure that moves around and that circulates and that can sustain us on a physical level? Those are some questions that we're going to have to ask now, because if it is a case where we're working from home, then all of our families, every single family is going to have to find a way that they can make an income online. And if we're not prepping ourselves and educating ourselves right now, when we have the time, when the world's up and moving, like, it might be a bit too late for us. So I think that's something that the family should be considering. And I'm definitely going to be looking online more to learn on that subject. But yeah, that's all from me.
Picking up on what you're saying there, Kevlar, even what you said before about we need to train, like, you see, it even ties into what I was saying the first time. We can't use what we've just been given as a result of the government, like the basics, like just public school and these things, and expect it to really help us with the skills we need to reach our highest level of spiritual realization as human beings. They're giving us the minimum to survive, but survival and thrival are two different things. Surviving and thriving are two different things, and we need to get out of this just being happy with surviving mentality and let's thrive. Let's get into that mentality where we can build things to help us flourish as a people. And to start doing that, we need to start regaining some of those ancestral skills, because as you do things will awaken. You'll start doing some things in the soil. And next thing you know, some DNA in yourself's awakening. You're saying, try this. You don't realize that could have been an ancient method. And you're saying, try this. And next thing you know, you try tie something with something. And this is how things work. But we can't just keep doing this robotic 9 to 5. The lockdown showed you how unreal that matrix is. Do you understand? Because look, you would have, a year ago, if I told you a man could shut down the world and make everyone stay in their yard, you would have looked at me like I'm a madman. But now I'm telling you, it's done happened. So what are you going to wait for to come next for a man to then look in your face until you prepare yourselves? Because this is not normal stuff. So what you think is just going to finish? Look at America. Look at everything. The world, this is a time that's been talked about in all these scriptures, in this, find yourself, whatever it is. I'm not talking one religion, whatever it is that gives you that faith and that power to get through these times and to unify and to better yourself for us as a people and for yourself. Go with it. Let's get it. No time to waste, man.
Definitely, because
Yes, family. Sorry, go on, Kev.
Sorry about that. I was gonna say, during this lockdown, there was a wealth transfer. Like the people who look at who profited from this whole situation. Jeff Bezos with Amazon. Those guys who have online corporations already set up. Yo, they're milking this right now.
Netflix made racks.
Yo, they're making big money, big money. And then there's the people who don't have that knowledge yet. We're the ones suffering. We're the ones who can't. We're feeling paralyzed right now. Some people have never had to think about having to go online as a way to create streams of income. So we definitely need to be thinking progressively about how we can deal with this issue, because money is being moved around, wealth is being transferred, but we're just not seeing any of it. And it's funny because we're the people who actually move the culture forward. You know what I'm saying? Whenever something's trending on Twitter or trending anywhere, it's us to make things pop. But we're not getting any of the money from that. It's what Twitter's making money, Instagram's making money. But what about us? What about that we need to build so that we can circulate that wealth, within our own community for our own agendas? That's something that we need to think about. So yeah.
That's true. That's so true.
Yes, as family, it's been an amazing conversation. So thank you for all your contributions this evening. To the audience out there, our Cipher members, this is not without you guys completing the Cipher. Big up on ourselves. Thank you for all the donations as well, family. The next episode of the Cipher will be dropping on Monday, the 27th of July at 7 p.m. and it's on the topic of millennials versus Generation Z. We begin the Cipher, but the Cipher is completed by you. Join the Cipher, people. See you next time, and thank you for joining us this evening.
Kush TV. Follow that Instagram. Kush TV.
And do you guys want to shout out your Instagram handle before we go?
Oh yeah, so you guys can follow me on Kevlar_TSC. So that's Kevlar_TSC.
Yeah. Shout out Black Pound Day as well. Shout out Black Pound Day, man. King Wisdom. King_Wisdom_TFK. Salute the real ones, man. Big up all the ancestors.
Yeah.
Tan, ready? You're gonna shout out your
You guys
handle.
can follow me on Instagram at G3M_IN_3YE. That's Gemini.
Sorry, family. Hey, family. You can follow me at _Naledi_23 on Instagram. And support my sister's business, Jael's Market, on Instagram as well.
And me, your host, Yemaya, can be found on Instagram at Aspiration Alchemy. That's Aspiration Alchemy. And until then, family, we'll see you on the 27th of July for our next episode, for episode 2, season 1 of the Cipher.
Yes.
That's our family.
Peace.
Peace, family. Bye.
This is the Cipher, and these are our lovely panelists. African versus Caribbean versus British.
I'll say from African, is that no, you're not?
Everyone's Africanness comes innately.
I went to Jamaica earlier this year, and I know I'm not Jamaican. They don't look at me as Jamaican.
Yeah.
I don't like people just wearing a dashiki and wearing stuff and just saying, yeah, I'm African now. That's very fake to me.
You protect people, want to claim Africa, like it's some superior, something. This being a semicircle, and you, the audience, completing the circle.
GotKushTV.com is now opening for you to advertise, calling all businesses, promoters, event organizers, artists, service providers, content creators, and brands of every kind. If you are looking to share your business or services with a growing and diverse audience, GotKush TV is the space for you. Advertising space is available all over the website. You can advertise here, 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 and you can even advertise here. All spaces are going at very reasonable rates, and we even have a design and production service, especially for those who will need an advert designed or produced for you. For inquiries, don't hesitate to contact us. info@gotkushtv.com. Advertising on gotkushtv.com. We look forward to hearing from you.